But my thing is, if I'm out to play a global game, me coming in second means that I'm going to stay in North America. That's what I mean. Right? So if your number one goal is to dominate Canada, then dominate Canada. And that's your first place.
Yeah.
But if you don't dominate Canada,
now you're in second.
Facts. But you're not competing against anybody. You're competing against yourself. Is this recording?
It is recording.
Is it recording right now?
Yeah.
Is it?
We're
Okay.
Good. We're recording.
Okay.
So when it comes to cold outreach, right? Let's start at the very top of it.
Okay.
LinkedIn, Hunter.io.
LinkedIn.
Zoom Info.
LinkedIn.
Rocket Reach.
Right now, it's pure LinkedIn.
Pure LinkedIn. Cold
Pure LinkedIn.
messaging.
Cold.
So you probably have like LinkedIn Navigator Plus.
No. So should I drop some like little tricks? Okay.
Please.
So most packages don't have a lot of in-mails, right? Like, so you got to go with the packages with the greatest amount of in-mails for people who don't know you. So I'm actually going with Recruiter Lite. You get 30 in-mails, which is like nothing, right? But then it's like anybody who has a LinkedIn, a paid account, you can message them directly. Like you guys know that already, right?
Yeah, I work in sales. So like this is what I do every day.
So I have literally like for, let's say the last, this is more or less, I've booked around 30 meetings over the last in-person meetings in New York, cold outreach. But that took more than 3,000 cold outreaches through LinkedIn. So it's like about a 1%, which is, if you're in sales, it's pretty good actually.
It's a solid conversion.
It's a solid conversion. So there's a higher conversion for people to get back to you and back and forth. But then to actually land meetings, a 1% is really good, especially since you're meeting with people and you're going to be asking them for anywhere from $250,000 to $1 million. That conversion level is incredibly high. But 30 in-mails is not enough per month. Like once you run out, then what? So I have literally like, there's a massive list of people in New York, right? There's certain profiles that I look for. And within those profiles, I'm only messaging the people who have a paid account because then I don't have to pay for the in-mails. You can message them directly. So there's probably upwards of 10,000 people I could be reaching out to, but for now, I've reached out to about 3,000, and that's all people that have a paid account. So it's a little bit of a hack.
The 30 in-mails, like, were you finding yourself just being extra strategic with like how you write the email, how you write the message, and is there follow-up on that too? Like, do you have to pay for like a follow-up, or do you just have to wait till they respond, then you can continue the conversation?
Well, if you know LinkedIn, with LinkedIn, if that person if you're using in-mails and that person doesn't have a paid account, you use up your 30, that's it. You have to wait for them to reply, or you have to wait for the next month, then you get a fresh batch. And there's no way you can run any sales campaign, I don't care who you are. Like, if you're asking people for sizable amounts of money, especially, like your chances of them responding in negative or positive diminishes, right, with that kind of ask. So as far as my message has now evolved 20, 30 times because you try things. And then like it's like an A/B testing, right? You try this message, gauge, see what your conversion is. Try a different message, A/B test it. And so easily that message has changed at least 20 or 30 times. And so I do buckets. I'll do like 100, switch it up, 100. And I started off 300. And I was like, let me see where the conversions were higher. And they weren't, first round, they weren't very, very different in the first round. So I'm like, fuck, I don't know which one to go with. So I repeat, 100, 100, 100. Then I started to see a slight variance in the type of responses. Not necessarily that they responded, but the types of responses. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting more people open to a Zoom call first using this message. So now I'm going to take this message, the same one, and send that out to another 300. But now I'm honing in on this message. And tweaking. So it's an iteration process like anything.
I was going to say, have you tried using video? Because I work for a company that's, sales prospecting with video.
Great idea. It's a great idea.
Get more into that.
It's a great idea. I love it.
Yeah, it's Vidyards, Looms. I started doing that actually, and that's been helping my sales outreach. I'm in sales too because, I run an agency, and that's been the best method.
Video.
I just
Makes
landed
sense.
like an easy call, You know, what I do, I don't just create a video, but I create like a whole strategy video. Because I have a paid marketing agency.
Yeah.
And that's the way I found to get quick messages. You know what I'm saying?
Nice. So, I'm trying to think. Because you can send files through InMail. So that could be or something similar.
Or a link. Yeah, the link with the thumbnail. Link. Yeah, I found that worked.
Love it. Thanks for the tips. I love it. That's something to try for sure.
Most definitely. We're already recording, Lloyd, so
we're off to the races, man.
It's all good. So welcome. You know what I'm saying? I'm really excited
to hustle over everything.
Hustle over everything.
We got a 24/7 hustler here, legit. She's all over. She's a globetrotter.
Oh,
right?
Yep.
It's a requirement.
Yep. For everybody, hello and welcome to Hustle Over Everything podcast. This is the podcast where we receive stories, tips, and tactics from entrepreneurs who have done it. So today we have a treat for you. We have Giselle in the building.
What's up, folks?
Giselle is currently building a VC fund. Mm-hmm. She's a tech entrepreneur. And overall, we're excited to hear her story. So, Giselle
Melo. You know, when I think of you, I put, like Carmelo.
Yeah. Get it.
You know, pop that 3 down the transition and just, bang, bang.
Nice.
You're mellow. It's the mellow way.
It's the mellow way.
Most definitely. Does that actually happen to you a lot where people come up to you and are talking to you about Mello and like
Mello, Carmelo?
Little bits, not too much. I actually get more Giselle Bündchen because Giselle from Brazil, the model.
Oh, yes.
And they're like, oh, of course you're Brazilian because your name's Giselle. I was like, well, actually, Giselle's a French name, but that's cool. Like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I have no connection to Giselle Bündchen or anybody like her, but yeah.
Well, most definitely. So I want to get into your story.
Here we go. Let's go.
Straight from the top.
Were you born in Canada?
Born in Canada. Neighborhood called Parkdale. I say that because I'm very proud of my Parkdale people, man. I'm because I know the East gets a lot of love, and I love the folks in the East.
The East gets a lot of love.
Yo, Scarbs gets like a lot of love. What do you mean? Yeah, man. Brampton gets love, and like Parkdale, I know we're little but mighty, and so I have to give
Parkdale people are so prideful about Parkdale. Like I had a friend, Jamal Stevens, R.I.P. Worked with him at Good Life in Sales back in the day, and he repped Parkdale hard.
Yeah.
So what is it about Parkdale that got you so prideful about it? Like, what is it? What's so special about it to you?
Listen, where do I start? Okay, so first of all, you grow up. At least this is my experience. Mm-hmm. Grow up, and my view on life was, I look outside the window, it's 2 worlds. I've got like my parents, Brazilian parents, like a lot of parents in Parkdale, first generation, melting pot, like India, parts of Africa, lots of people from the West Indies, South American folks. And it's like, and there's not so many white people, but we're just like, you grow up. It's funny, right? It's and you grow up and everybody's kind of going through the same experience, right? So that's one view. And all the parents are like working 2-3 jobs to make it work. And everybody's just on a hustle all the time. And then outside, my other view is just like the street. Mm-hmm. And everybody has the same view to the street. And when I was growing up, it's like the hustlers, the entertainers, literally hustlers. Like you're surrounded by hustlers. Mm-hmm. And I just grew up when, hip hop, I'd say was about 5 to 6 years in. And so hip hop ends up bringing all these different cultures together. And for me anyway, that's where I built my growth mindset, was actually from hip hop. But it wasn't just me. It was like almost everybody. The Pinos, the Indian folk, right? And so like in many ways, hip hop was this connector. And so now we see hip hop as this it's an influencer, it's an economic engine, it's a powerhouse, it does all the things. But back then it was just a connector. It was a connector. And so I think so much of Parkdale, like if you ask most people who grew up in Parkdale, if they're not connected to hip hop in some way, shape, or form, regardless of their background, I'd be very surprised. So Parkdale, for me, is like Parkdale is synonymous with hip hop and growth mindset and hustle all in one. And I never experienced anything outside like Parkdale. And so anyway, it was like its own little culture. It was its own little culture.
Back in the as it's happening, where you're like, oh, like this is influential to me. Were you just living in the moment?
That's all I knew.
Yeah.
Because when you're a kid, you're like, my parents and like many parents, you're not allowed to go past certain boundaries, right? And Parkdale, it's a pretty big geography to begin with, but we'd go, I'd say like at least a kilometer radius. That's a lot of like running room when you're like 8. Yeah. And your parents let you go because all the other parents are watching you. It's very community. So you can go as it seemed far for us at the time. And so it was my whole world. Literally, Parkdale was my whole world. And so when we speak of it with pride, it's just like, it's almost like saying, forget that I'm Brazilian, I'm from Parkdale. It's like it almost becomes where you grew up.
What's one track that resonates the most with you with Parkdale when you reflect back in those days?
Track is in a hip-hop track?
Hip-hop track, yeah.
Oh, man. There's so many. Of course, I always default to Nas because he's one of my favorites, but I'd say If I Ruled the World, if just because you're asking me now, right? If I Ruled the World is a big song. That's the first one that came to me anyway. Because there was a lot of stuff going on and you're just like, you didn't know as a kid whether it was the way the world worked, but you just knew that some things weren't right about it. Yeah. Right? But that's all you knew. And so I think I'm going to say If I Ruled the World.
You switch up New York state of mind with Parkdale state of mind.
Right? I love it. Yeah.
So that's amazing. That's amazing.
Most definitely. So I'm curious, what do you think about the gentrification that's happening in Parkdale right now? That's a really big.
Listen, gentrification in general is a touchy subject because the world is going to evolve, right? You can't stop things from moving forward. So it's a mixed bag because, I'm in a position of privilege now, right? And I'm probably living somewhere that was not looking as nice back then as it is looking now. So I'd be a bit of a hypocrite if I said, hey, gentrification is, right? But at its core, it's really messed up because you're essentially pushing people out of their homes in many cases, no matter how you slice it, people are getting pushed out of their homes. On the flip side, here I am, out of the hood, living somewhere that used to be the hood. I don't live in Parkdale anymore. But where I live, it's Coastal Distillery District, is very similar, right? It's like nice now, but that wasn't the case.
Yeah, it's like a hipster area now.
Yeah, it's like a hipster area,
Starbucks, all these little trendy shops, everything like that.
Right?
Yeah.
Didn't I walk in with my little Starbucks, right? So it's like I'm very like conflicted sometimes because I don't want to stay in the hood. Right? We all like work and we hustle so we can have a better life, so we can provide better for our children. And that's what my parents did. They're just like, we got to get out of here. And we moved to Etobicoke, also a place that had just gone through gentrification. And for me, it was like a shock because it's like all white people and I didn't know what to do. But at the same time, what it did is it gave me access to experiences that I hadn't had before. It gave me, first-time access to things about financial literacy that I had no idea about. So, I can hate on gentrification at its core for what it does. At the same time, it opened up a world for me that I had not and knew nothing about where I grew up. So it's a mixed. I have inner conflict about that. But I also think there's a better way that it can be done. So I don't think all gentrification is the same. I think if you can take an area and prepare folks, rather than run them out, educate them and empower them to have the option to stay in their neighborhood and economically empower them to be able to buy those places and be part of the gentrification process, I think that's a better way to do it. And I've heard of some areas that have done it. I know there's question marks. I don't know all the details about what happened at down the street, Regent Park. Yeah. Because there's I've heard people that used to live there. Some people that told me, it's the best thing that happened. And I've spoken to some people, they're just they just didn't give a shit about us. So I've heard both stories. The good I've heard is that there were some folks that were guided and given the option to stay and buy and keep their families there and benefit from the upgrade. And I heard from some people, they were just kicked out. Nobody cared about them. They didn't have an opportunity to be educated and didn't have an option to buy. So that's where I'm like, again, I wasn't there to know firsthand whether it was a good program or not a good program. But does it bring me some comfort that some folks that I know live there and are still there and are happy there and experiencing a better life there? Yeah, that makes me feel good. But again, that's a third-party view, right? I didn't actually go through it, so I don't know what's real or what's not.
Yeah, most definitely. So let's get back into your story.
Yeah.
At what point, we're going to speed it up a little bit. At what point did you start getting into tech?
It was around 2000.
Okay.
That's funny. Tech for me is very similar to hip-hop. It's like building something from nothing. So it was around 2000.
Okay. What were some of the emerging technologies that you noticed that gave you the insight, this is where I want to play?
It was actually very basic in the beginning. It was just like websites.
It's like Web 1.
Web 1.0. Like, yeah. It was like, that was just like, it wasn't, I mean, some people say, well, that wasn't really tech. But back then, having a website was big. Like, I can put my flyer after, like, if you, like, remember where I grew up. So it's like, street teams are passing out flyers. So wait a minute. So instead of me passing out a flyer, I can send you a link to this thing and 1,000 people can see it versus one flyer. Like that to me, I was just like, and it costs how much? So like the cost benefit to me, the low cost of entry, the ability to reach so many more people with this technology. I was like, wait a minute, this is interesting. I've never seen something like this before. So for me, it was something very simple. It was websites. That was my starting point.
Word. So what was the entrance into it? Was it building websites for people?
Yeah.
Get out of here. So you're a graphic designer, web designer type of thing?
No, I was doing event marketing. Event marketing first.
All
so you're building events around experiences around brands. And then clients asking for a digitization. So blending offline and digital. And so we started to build websites as well as event marketing. So it was a blend. And that was my first entry into tech.
That was your first ever, like, tech is one thing, but into entrepreneurship.
Oh, no, entrepreneurship. Since I was 12, I was like garage sales.
Just grinding it out.
Yeah, like I lived in a building in Parkdale when I was 11. I think it was 11. 6-story building. I lived right by, what's it called? C&E. So every year people go to C&E. You know how they play the games and everybody gets the fluffy toys and shit like that. And for like 2 weeks, that's your favorite fluffy toy and it's taking up like half of your living room. And I can tell you like 2 months later, all those toys are either in the garbage or you hear all the parents complaining. Because I was like the kid who had all these shit. And my parents were just like, you got to get rid of this. I was like, okay, people are getting rid of a lot of stuff at a certain time of the year. I'm going to knock on all the doors, see what people are throwing out. And I'm going to hold a garage sale. And that was my first, like, real entrepreneur. Like, now I can see what it was. Back then, I was just like, yo, I can make some money. People are throwing out shit. I'm going to see if somebody wants to buy it. And so that was my first entry into entrepreneurship. Yeah. It had nothing to do with tech.
Those stuffy bears are crazy. I remember going to C&E. My ex and I was playing those basketball games, right? And you know me, I'm a straight shooter. You know, my shot's nice.
Yeah.
So I won like this massive. Like, got skills.
You got skills, and you got to get the toys for the girls, man.
I always tell Al, like if I was taller, I'd be in the league right now. Straight up. But that's a conversation for another day.
Okay.
But I won this massive toy.
Yeah.
And there's no way I'm bringing that. Like I'm leaving it there, right? Because I just won. I gotta walk around like I'm a champ. And I was living in a basement apartment. This is back in college.
Yeah.
Took up massive space. We walk in, it's such an eyesore. It's just sitting right then and there. And that's like hustles people can do today with like the amount of like you have Facebook Marketplace, you got eBay, you got everything you can utilize to make a quick flip. So you were like ahead of your time back in the day, and like you're 12 and you're thinking like this.
Well, it's either that or people are pulling you in to sell drugs, and that's not that. My dad would have kicked my ass.
Your dad was a militant guy like that.
Took no prisoners.
Yeah.
So you learn early, it's just like, that's not an option. Find some other option. I was like, okay, we find some stuff to sell. That's legit. And like people are like collecting all this stuff, and I'm not a stuff person. But I'm like, maybe somebody will pay 25 cents for this jumbo
bear.
Yeah. And that's what happened. Somebody was paying for it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So moving from like that venture, you're in tech now.
Yeah.
How do you grow your business? Like, what are some critical points of success you had while building this website business?
So the event marketing, I've always been obsessed with trying to understand how money moves because I didn't know how money moves. And so event marketing, at the time, you could sell that to anybody, because all you're doing is amplifying their brand around real life experiences. And it doesn't matter what company you are, what you're selling, you can build an experience around a brand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I don't need schooling for that. I don't need to be an agency. Don't need street teams. Cool. I understand that. And so that was my entry to say, okay, we're going to pitch as many financial institutions. And I didn't know anything about the capital markets at the time. I'm just going to pitch clients who are in the money game. I didn't know that one was necessarily a bank versus an investment banking versus accounting. I just knew they played in the money space, and I was obsessed with pitching companies that were in the money space.
Yeah. And
that's how I started to get into understanding who was what, right? A bank versus this. I still didn't get it. Reading at home, figuring it out. And so that connected me to the money market. Okay. Finally found a client who, this is 6 years later, who was willing to really actually hire us, like really hire us, not beyond street team stuff, beyond website stuff, to actually help them build a business, actually go out there and do sales on their behalf. And that introduced me to wealth management. Again, I don't know if we have time for that story. But between needing to know how money moves and knowing that technology can unlock a lot of things at a very, very low cost, I knew I had to live somewhere in that world. And I started to learn about this thing called venture capital, because it was then like popping. Investors, investing into companies. I was like, I want to do that.
And what year was this?
This was probably around 2005, 2006. 2006, because I remember Steve Jobs got into the game around 97. A lot of hype around the iPhone. He didn't have like a big education. He wasn't a big tech guy. He was a sales guy. And I'm just like, this guy's like, what's he doing that's so special? And it just starts to mess with your mind. And I'm like, okay, let me just follow this train. So I followed the tech train, and I was following the money train slowly at the same time, learning little things as I went.
What was the first foray into that?
Into wealth management?
Yeah.
So one client called Torrin and Associates. I pitched them on branding for 6 years. They didn't buy anything. But at one point, they said, yes, we need some help with branding. Fine. And I think it was a combination of just persistence. And after a while, when you're persistent in some ways and you don't, overbearing, but you get to know folks, there's a natural trust that develops. They start to share more with you. Phenomenal gentleman, Mark. And we went in to do some branding, but we and he found out very, very soon that branding is not what he needed. He actually needed somebody to do business development, actually go out there and bring him clients. And flyers and websites wasn't going to do it alone. So he ended up taking me, hiring our company to do the branding, but in the process, taking me to go see some of his clients while he was going to see some of those clients for me to learn about the industry. And I was happy as hell because I didn't care. I just knew he was in the money game. I didn't know what it was. And I followed him to some meetings, and I'm listening to these people talk, and all they do is manage money for wealthy people. And I'm like, you get paid to do this? How much do you get paid? And I'm learning how much they get paid, types of money they're managing, the types of ways they're managing money. And I'm like, okay, I got to stay close to this guy. And I got to make him money first. And that's what ended up happening. I ended up getting to know how these companies work, wealth management firms, enough that I was like, you know what? I'm going to help you bring on some new clients. And he was open to it because, remember, there was 6 years there of some level of confidence and trust. Not necessarily that I could bring clients, but that I could carry myself a certain way. This is a whole different world, right? You have to dress a certain way. You have to speak a certain way. And that's what I was telling you earlier. There's like when you code switch. Yeah. I was code switching like a motherfucker. Okay? I was code switching like a motherfucker. Because for me, it was like, do I speak like I speak, or what's my end game? Yeah. It's like, I have an end game. That's more important. And so that was my first foray into now I know the world very, very well, but that was my first foray into the capital markets. And I'm amongst, there's 700 plus firms across Canada, and I'm sitting amongst the top wealth management firms that are managing billions of dollars for the wealthiest people in Canada. And we're here having chit chat. And I'm like, sure, why not me? And so I stayed in that space for a long time. I almost let go of my branding company because that became my primary interest. I ended up being retained by him for about 2 years, but my passion for technology was not done yet. And so I did an assignment with him, completed an assignment. I told him, I was like, I need to go into tech. I was like, can you introduce me to some VCs? And he started to laugh. He's like, VCs are nothing more than a couple of guys. I remember he said, a couple of guys and a dog who have made a lot of money, and now they're just investing their own capital. I said, well, I want to do that. He goes, well, Giselle, you need to create your own capital. I was like, fine, then I'm going to build a tech company. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm sure you will someday, but know that you have to make a lot of money. I was like, I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm going to figure this shit out. And he was very elegant about it. He introduced me to a couple of people in the investment banking space at the time, because Canada didn't have a lot of VCs at the time. And that's how I got to know about investment banking. So slowly, I got to know about different areas of the capital markets. Still hadn't met any VCs. But I'm like, okay, I'm going to build my own tech company. I had a little bit of money. I sold my car. I gave up my place. I had a little bit of money in a GIC. Cashed out everything. And I did that crazy shit that a lot of people do. I took a room in my friend's house, paid $400 a month, had no car, had no nothing, spent whatever money I had going to a bunch of tech events, getting to know folks. I manifested a CTO, which is a crazy story in and of itself. Found me a CTO, and we're like, we started to build.
Talk about how you found a CTO. That's big.
In tech, especially if you're not like a technical guy, finding a tech co-founder is it's like chasing for a unicorn. Mm-hmm. I built a tech startup before, and I went through so many guys, so many failures, so many intros. The one guy I met him when I was working at Good Life Fitness. Yeah. I was doing a referral booth, and I was just always talking about the idea. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, I'm a developer. And I was like, hey, let's get some coffee. I want to get your... So my passion for what I did led him to actually, if you have the vision, if this is what you've done so far, I want to get behind you and see where this could go. Facts. And I have nothing else. And I think what developers want to see from a non-technical founder is like, hey, do you have an ability to get customers? Have you done anything to prove this minimal viable product? And are you the right person to lead this product towards success if I'm the one to build it? So, because they get pitched every day. Every day, 10 times a day. Facts.
Most definitely.
Every day, 10 times a day. And there's a gentleman named Alexis Ohanian, Serena Williams' husband. Yeah. And he said it years ago, and he says it all the time. He goes, if you find a technical co-founder, you do whatever you need to do. Whatever you need to do. Do sales, operations, get the coffee. And I was doing all the things because I found not only a great developer and engineer, a phenomenal human being. And we're still partners today. Wow. And you do fucking whatever you need to do. And I didn't take it lightly that I found somebody that was just like dope as fuck.
Break it down, not exactly how you found it. No, because this is really important.
I'll break it down.
A lot of people have ideas, but no one knows how to execute.
Listen, I'm I always say this, luck is a hell of a thing. Because there was a lot of luck, and there was mistakes that actually led me to meet this guy. But, yes, I had a little bit of money. But like what you said, it's like they need to know that you're clear on your vision. You're like there for the long run. They're being pitched left, right, and center, not just by other startup folks, founders, right? Ideas, but every corporation is after them. Like everybody's after them. Because they're rare now. They were even more rare then. So this is 2011. Okay. So if you guys know a site, I don't even know if it's around anymore. I don't think it's around anymore, called meetup.com.
Yeah, it's still.
Is it still around?
Still popping.
Okay, it's still popping.
With Zoom meetings too. I'm like, listen, I don't know about if I want to hop on a Zoom meeting and talk to strangers, man. I don't know.
Everything's on Zoom now, eh? I haven't been on meetup in years.
Well, it's starting to open up now because of the society is opening up. But during the panini, like I wasn't like
the Panera bread.
Bread.
Do I really want to go and meet randos on Zoom? Like,
you ain't about it.
I wasn't about it. Well, I used this other company that was like, all right, specifically 4 people and one person is like a conductor, so you can actually meet and network properly. But this going into like a rando, like there was no direction in the conversation. Like, all right, I'm just here chilling on Zoom,
killing time,
and then going on another one just for the fun of it. Yeah. It's tough. But anyways, though, you were saying,
so you met him on meetup. If you want to share
his name is Denner.
Denner.
Yeah, Denner. Denner. Denner.
Actually, like birth certificate Denner.
Denner.
Wow. I don't know, when the parents were thinking, like, Denner is the name.
Listen.
We go to Dennis, then Dan, then Denner.
Denner. I've never met another Denner. I looked at him funny. I was like, Dennis? He's like, Denner. I was like, okay. No,
wow.
That's like,
a unique name.
It's very, very different.
Yeah.
So Meetup.com was a big thing. Anything that was a group platform, I'm like looking for co-founders, letting them know, here's my thing. And it's like copy paste at first, right? It's like, you think it's kind of, there isn't a human touch, but I'm very clear on what I'm looking to achieve. And once we connect, then we can have a human conversation. But right now, it's like, if I'm going to reach out to you, I'm going to be straight up about why I'm reaching out to you. Anyway, meetup.com or whatever. I find out about an event. It's called the International Startup Festival, happening in Montreal. I think it was its second year. And I'm like, okay. So I'm looking up this event. Turns out it's one of the biggest events in Canada. Like, I got to get there. Looking up do I want to rent a car? Do I whatever? And I bump into this thing called the Startup Train. Mm-hmm. So much unlocked for me in the Startup Train. Another conversation. But I go to Montreal, rent my little hotel room, go to Montreal, get there, and I'm pure looking for tech engineers. I'm talking to everybody. Anybody. Listening in, people get around little groups, because most people don't know each other. They're there. It's a giant festival. Some people are there to pitch VCs. Some people are there to network. I am there for two reasons: to get to know any VCs that I can get to know, and I'm looking for a technical co-founder. It's too early for a VC, but I'm like, let me start building the relationships now, because at some point I'm going to build this shit, and I want to know who the VCs are. Fine. Talk to all kinds of people. And I meet this guy, Alex. Engineer, nice guy. Told him about my thing. He's like, okay, let's stay in touch. Anyway, I'm there for 3 days, come back to Toronto. Mm-hmm. And I'm making my list of all the people that I met with, my little spreadsheet, who I got to follow up with, all the things. I'm using spreadsheets because I didn't want to pay for any CRMs at the time. Now there's a bunch of free CRMs.
No, but spreadsheets are clutch, though.
You have
very clutch.
Complete control.
Listen,
you know where you left it off at.
Yeah. I still use Excel. I have CRMs that I still use Excel. Anyway, there's this guy, Alex. Do you too?
Like, every now and then, like, I'll just like impromptu, like, all right, I just want to quickly create a spreadsheet of who I'm talking to today. Cause I feel like sometimes it's cumbersome to go into HubSpot or, whatever platform it is. What's another one? So I don't give HubSpot free promo.
Monday.com, Salesforce.
Use Airtable too.
Airtable.
Yeah, Airtable.
Yeah,
Airtable's hot. Airtable's dope now, but they didn't exist back then.
Yeah. Airtable and HubSpot are like the go-tos. But sometimes, all right, I just want to set up something quick. And I feel like if I do HubSpot or one of those Airtables, I have to create a whole flow, right? And with Excel, I can be, all right, one time today, get it up, and just keep running. But yeah, continue.
Do you ever tell yourself, yeah, let me just put this in Excel right now, and then I'll upload it at some point, and then you never upload it?
Yes. Yeah. Very relatable.
All the time.
Relatable
all the
content.
Time. So anyways, at this event, meet this person, one of the people I meet, come back to Toronto, and I can't remember his whole name, but I remember Alex. Fuck, what is this boy's name? And I had a great conversation with him, but see what lack of preparation does. It's like I didn't get his whole name. So I jump back on meetup.com, and I'm looking for Alex. Blah, blah, blah. And this Alex guy pops up. I'm like, kind of looks like him, kind of doesn't. Fuck it. Reach out to him. He responds. He's like, hey, I've never been to Montreal. I think you got the wrong guy, but sure, I'll meet with you. Swear to God. So this mistake that happened turned out to be one of the best experiences of my life. We go for coffee at Second Cup, King and Spadina. And I'm like, you've never been to Montreal? I'm like, I'm so sorry. He's like, that's okay. Nicest guy. So I'm like, look, I have this thing. Walked him through it. Looking for a technical co-founder. Watch him. He's just like, okay, sure. I was like, no. Hold on. Let me back it up a little bit. I'm doing this thing. Here's what I have. Here's what I don't have here. He's like, okay, let's go. That's the look I had on my face. I was like, I'm like, this is like, we're looking to build a company here. It could take years, like years. He's like, he didn't know where I was from. He's like, I just got here. I've been here for 6 weeks. My wife and I and my daughter just got here from Brazil. He didn't know I was Brazilian. We just arrived. And he's like, I'm just getting to know people in the tech ecosystem too. So he goes, at some point I have to get a job. But I came here, I have a little bit of money. So I have about 6 months where while I'm looking for a job, I don't mind trying something. I was like, okay. I was like, I'm in this for like the long run, but you know, if you find you need to get a job, are you still cool doing this on the side if you like it? He's like, yeah, sure, why not? And I was like, by the way, my family's Brazilian. He's like, get out of here. So we're talking. And then I go home and I'm like, did that shit just happen?
Yeah.
Does he know what he's signed up for? And do I want to get too invested in somebody who is just so quick to say yes? Mm-hmm. Right? And I'm like, Giselle, no. Do not block your blessings. Go. Just go. And that's what happened. And say, startup train. So in Montreal, I met these other guys. They have a big office space. They had already offered me a corner little spot in their office for free. Mm-hmm. This was close to King and Spadina. I've met a number of VCs. One of them gives me their card. Later, 7 years down the road, he becomes one of my first clients for my software company.